what's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about the greatest British foods and dishes. Now, believe me when I say, as an American, I really like food. I really appreciate food. So I'm very curious about this list of the 10 greatest British foods. But at the same time, I know Britain also has a lot of kind of strange food. Or at least, strange to us, or maybe we're the strange ones. Who knows, actually. But either way, I am excited. Let's take a look at the 10 greatest British foods and dishes.
Number 10. Toad in the Hole. We love our
Toad in the Hole. Toad in the Hole. What a name. I remember this name. I've heard this before. Toad in the Hole. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Although I can see it's like sausage. I just gotta say, as soon as they brought this up, when you look at it, if one thing is absolutely spot on true about this, it looks like toads in a bunch of holes. But is that really what you have to call it? Just because it looks like that? Is it totally... Something about the name kind of freaks me out. Maybe that's totally, like, illogical. Because, it looks like sausage in pastry, which, doesn't sound that bad.
We love our sausages in the UK, whether
Okay.
as part of a breakfast, slapped on a butty, or paired with fluffy potato to create the classic bangers and mash.
Okay.
One traditional sausage dish that still survives today is the humble toad in the hole. It's not the
This is so fascinating because we like sausage here in the United States, pretty normal, but we don't like bake it into anything. It's always just a sausage sitting there on the plate, and that's normal. So this is actually like something extra, like kind of cool, kind of like fancy that you can do with sausage. So I don't know why my knee-jerk reaction is to be like, oh my God, what is that? I feel like this is good, like making me a little more open-minded about the toad in the hole, even though it has that name.
most appetizing of names, but otherwise
Right, even the narrator admits it. Not the most appetizing of names, but looking at it right there, I mean, it's very bizarre. It's like a sausage in a pie or something.
what's not to like about sausages baked in Yorkshire pudding batter? This simple meal
Oh, it's Yorkshire pudding batter, and you put sausages in it. Not a bad idea, but the first person to ever think to do that was a little weird. But it turned out they were probably onto something pretty smart.
is quick to make and especially tasty when paired with onion gravy. Toad in the
Okay.
hole began popping up in the 18th century as a way for poor families to stretch out meagre meat portions. It wasn't always made with
Oh.
sausage. One early recipe calls for pigeon in the hole, but nowadays it's sausage or nothing. Number 9.
Honestly, if you just showed me Toad in the Hole, I wouldn't have thought anything negative about it. I think it's just the name. Just the name that, like, freaks me out and other Americans out. It's a very memorable name.
Haggis, neeps and tatties.
Haggis, neeps, and tatties. I've heard of haggis. That is some kind of strange ground up combination of some sorts of organs and other things, and that freaks me out a bit. I don't even know what neeps and tatties are. Do they go well with haggis? Is it going to convince me that haggis isn't completely disgusting?
A sheep's stomach stuffed with offal, onion and spices might not sound delicious, but it's actually
No.
pretty good. Haggis
No.
can sometimes be found in a full Scottish breakfast, but is most often eaten as part of the Burns night supper.
Oh my God. I say this every time I come across haggis on one of these videos. It's like, I get it. It's not part of my culture. I've never tried it. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's good. I don't know. But on its face, it's disturbing to Americans, for sure. Even the name, haggis. I'm going to have some haggis. Like, I don't want to just bash the haggis or any of these. They're just different. And that's just my genuine knee-jerk reaction, I guess. I need to be a bit more open-minded.
Neeps and tatties, turnips and potatoes, are traditionally served alongside the haggis and washed down with a dram of whiskey.
Turnips and potatoes? Is that what this other stuff is? Neeps and tatties. Neeps and tatties. Turnips and potatoes. That's what neeps and tatties are, isn't it? Oh my gosh. Now that's fun. Neeps and tatties.
Burns Night celebrates the famous Scots poet Rabbie Burns, writer of Auld Lang Syne and Address to a Haggis. The latter poem is read over the food at an annual supper, after the haggis has been piped in with great ceremony. It's possibly an acquired taste, but it's hearty fare. Well,
an acquired taste. How often do Brits actually partake in the haggis? That's something I've often wondered. Or is this just kind of a rare thing that even Brits are like, oh yeah, I don't have haggis that much. It's a bit, it's a little out there. Or is it just completely normal? That's the kind of details I wonder about.
Well suited to cold winter nights. Number 8, steak and kidney pie.
Steak and kidney pie. Steak and kidney pie sounds familiar. I feel like I've heard of a lot of these British dishes. Just from like YouTube videos and through the course of our American lives. We hear these things, but don't know what they are. But we've just heard these random names and we're like, haggis, toad in the hole, steak and kidney pie, oh my god. And then we just are left wondering. So I'm glad these are being thoroughly explained. Steak and kidney pie. Pies in America are always chocolate pie, maybe an apple pie. We don't really have meat pie. So this is one of those British meat pies, which is already different. Doesn't necessarily sound bad. The kidney. Is that real animal kidney in it? Is that what that means?
They may favour sweet pies across the pond, but
Yes.
in the UK, we're all about the savoury. And the
Okay.
meatier, the better. Apple pie and custard is worth a mention too, but honestly, we're more likely to cook up a crumble. Whether you're opting for chicken and mushroom or steak and ale, serve your pie with mash or with chips, and don't stint on the gravy. A pork
I mean, it has to be said, these are in a list here of the 10 greatest British dishes. So I'm going to give that some credit and assume that although many of these sound strange to me, they all so far have sounded strange to me, and I've questioned their taste. But I'm going to give some credit to Brits and this list and operate under the assumption that these are the 10 best British dishes. I don't know if that's best in tradition or best in taste, but there must be a reason these are so popular and famous.
pork pie eaten as a snack is one of life's great pleasures, but steak and kidney is the real classic. The combination of that rich, meaty filling, thick gravy, and golden brown pie crust is utterly mouth-watering.
But what about the kidney? What does the kidney mean?
Especially if the pie is homemade. Number 7.
The meat sounds good. Steak pie? That sounds good. It's not kidney beans, is it? It's kidney organ? I'm still a little confused about that one.
Trifle.
Trifle. Never heard of it. Trifle. It looks like what we would call pudding. Vanilla pudding.
Originating in England, the trifle has had some success as a children's party favourite, but really, it's adults who love this indulgent confection of jelly, fruit, and cream.
Jelly, fruit, and cream. That's a trifle right there. That's the most normal thing so far on the list as far as Americans go. This looks just like a cake, a fruit cake. It's funny that the first thing I identify with as normal is the cake, of course, in true American fashion.
Might have something to do with the amount of booze it's acceptable to pour into these things. Although the recipe can vary greatly, versions of this layered pudding began making cookery book appearances back in the 16th century.
It's more of a pudding than a cake. It's mushy, and you can put alcohol in it.
The trifle's glory days may be behind it, but as it's easily rustled up and always looks impressive, we doubt it'll disappear anytime soon.
This is the most normal thing so far to Americans. Americans would eat this. We wouldn't know what to call it. I didn't know it was a trifle. I wouldn't have known that, but I would have just looked at this any day and been like, yeah, that's a fruity pudding cake thing. Yeah, yeah, nothing crazy going on here. It actually seems quite nice.
In fact, in 2022, a new variation on the dessert, including lemon Swiss roll, white
Oh.
chocolate, and amaretti biscuits, was chosen as the official platinum pudding to
Okay.
commemorate the Queen's Jubilee. Number 6, shepherd's pie and cottage pie.
Shepherd's pie, cottage pie. I don't know the difference between them. This is some kind of. I've definitely learned about this one before. Shepherd's pie and cottage pie. I believe this sounded good. I don't mean to say that as like, oh my god. It's very memorable when something sounds good. A lot of the British dishes are often just so out there and so different from an American's point of view that I don't know what to think of them. This one I remember being good.
When it comes to the nation's favourite pies, some of our most beloved are not really pies at all.
Okay.
Shepherd's pie and cottage pie are established family favourites made from mincemeat topped with mashed potato and cooked in the oven. Many
Meat, potato, I think there can be like vegetable. It's like Thanksgiving wrapped up into a pie form or something. It sounds quite nice.
of us think of the two pies as interchangeable, but supposedly shepherd's pie uses lamb, hence the
Oh.
name, while cottage is traditionally made with beef mince. The British cousin of spaghetti
Oh.
bolognese and chili con carne, shepherd's or cottage pie has become a staple for many of us in the UK.
We don't have shepherd's pie or cottage pie here in the United States, but I do firmly believe Americans would love this. We don't ever eat lamb. That's very, very, very rare to have lamb. So I think it'd mostly be cottage pies. Americans would be confused by the term pie, because again, our pies are all circular and like sweet, never with meat. But aside from all that, this actually sounds really good.
However, there is a possibility that it actually originated in France.
Ah.
Number 5, sticky toffee pudding. Compared to
I love the name. Sticky toffee pudding? Toffee. Toffee is like a flavor I've heard of, or it's like a candy, or we don't have toffee flavored stuff very much here in America. You can find it if you go out of your way. It's kind of considered like an older favorite, like not very hip and happening right now. Definitely nothing like sticky toffee pudding. I'd love to know how you make this.
some of the distinguished dishes on this list, sticky toffee pudding is a bit of a newfangled invention, coming to
Okay.
popularity in the 1970s. The
Okay.
Aussies and the Kiwis call it sticky date pudding, but we can claim the recipe as our own. The modern incarnation traces back to a hotel in Cumbria, although one pub in Yorkshire claims they were serving it back in 1907.
It's crazy how, okay, they said this might have been invented in 1970, maybe 1907. It's crazy how a dish invented 50 years ago is considered new compared to how long most of these British dishes have actually existed and been popular. It's kind of amazing, the history.
A good sticky toffee pudding consists of a light, moist sponge made with chopped dates and seasoned with nuts or spices.
Okay.
It's doused in toffee sauce and served with vanilla ice cream or custard. There's no
That sounds good. I'm not exactly sure what toffee sauce tastes like. I kind of have an image in my mind of like toffee candy. So I guess it's like that. It seems like, I mean, it is a dessert. And I'm noticing that anytime there's a dessert, I immediately start thinking, okay, Americans would like this. I don't think that's a coincidence.
British delicacy that feels more indulgent. But if you want a quick fix, you can even make it in the microwave.
It looks good.
Number 4, chicken tikka masala.
Chicken tikka masala. I have never heard of this. This is a popular British dish, is it?
Considered by some as our national dish,
This is the national dish, excuse me. By some. Unofficial? National British dish? Chicken? Really? What does tikka masala mean?
yes, really, this mild chicken curry is Britain's favourite Indian meal, but it's not really Indian at all.
Curry. I've heard about the curry in Britain. Like, it's very popular, although I do associate it with Indian food. It's very random to me that Brits love curry by the sound of it. That's not really a thing here. It's not a thing at all here, actually. It's pretty hard to find an Indian restaurant here in the United States. But apparently this is pretty popular in Britain. And this one sounds Indian, but was actually invented in Britain, actually, which is interesting.
Inspired by butter chicken, it's believed to have been invented back in the 60s by the British South Asian community. Was it the Bangladeshi migrant chefs, the British Pakistanis from Glasgow, or the Indian cook from London with the can of Campbell's soup? Whichever apocryphal tale is the true version, we can safely say that chicken tikka masala was designed to be marketed to Brits.
Chicken tikka masala. I'm going to remember that one. So it was invented by British South Asians. So that makes sense. They kind of brought some of that culture over and made like a British take on curry. That's very, very interesting. I don't know much about curry or the flavor or anything, but it's chicken. It's meat. I think anything on this list that's like just chicken, meat, or cake or pudding, I have noticed. I'm like, okay, I can deal with that. That sounds good.
Not too spicy and swimming in gravy, the tomato and chicken-based dish is more than a tasty takeaway classic. It's multiculturalism in action.
Yeah.
Number 3, a full English. Breakfast.
A full English. Okay. Oh, is that what you call it? It's not a full English breakfast. That's for noobs to call it. It's a full English. A full English. I'm not exactly sure what technically is part of the full English breakfast. Just looking at this picture, actually. Beans, of course. Sausage, eggs, and some vegetables, a toast. Is there like a strict definition of a proper full English breakfast?
Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and there's nothing more satisfying than when you get the chance to do it proper. Nope.
Yeah, I mean, this looks hearty. This looks like you would be like full. This is a lot of food.
Croissants or pancakes for us, Brits traditionally break their fast with a fry-up. Your full English should typically include sausages, bacon and eggs, mushrooms, fried bread, fried or grilled tomatoes, black pudding, and maybe a hash brown or two. The Scottish had haggis, white pudding, oatcakes, or tatty scones.
There are different kinds of full English breakfasts, depending on where you live and what you like. It seems very versatile. Seems very hearty. There's a couple of extra things here that make me, particularly the beans. I was gonna say Americans would be all over this, and I think many Americans would be all over this. The bean thing is more of a mental block, maybe for me, and some Americans like beans. Most Americans don't eat beans as any part of our regular diet. I'll say that.
The Welsh occasionally include cockles and lava bread, and an Ulster fry might be served with soda bread or potato cakes.
Cool.
Whatever part of the UK you hail from, it's widely understood that a fry-up is the food of the gods, a reliable hangover cure, and a great British institution.
So this is a pretty famous one. This is well known. This is one I could picture Brits eating somewhat regularly. Although, yeah, it's very hearty. It might not be healthy to eat like every day for breakfast, but who cares?
Number 2, a Sunday roast.
A Sunday roast? Is this just a roast? Like beef or something? I feel like we have roast beef here in America. We just don't call it anything. Like, it doesn't have a proper name. Like a Sunday roast. Is there something that makes it a Sunday roast? Maybe if it's eaten on Sunday, perhaps?
Talking of British institutions, let's take a minute to celebrate the traditional Sunday roast.
Okay.
Many households still sit down to a roast dinner on a Sunday afternoon, and pubs do a roaring trade in carveries for Sunday lunch.
It's not a joke. It really is a Sunday thing. Okay.
Great British roast is basically a less fancy version of your classic Christmas dinner. Roasted meat, Yorkshire puddings, roast potatoes and veg are your basic components.
Holy cow. some of these, I'm skeptical sometimes of some of the British foods and dishes, but other times I'm like, this looks amazing. We need this here in America. Some of these things, it's a big spectrum. The British dishes. I'm all over the place.
Gravy and stuffing are recommended, and of course, whatever sauce goes best with your meat of choice.
Oh, yeah.
Whether you're tugging into chicken, lamb, or a bit of roast beef, the plates are piled high and soon scraped clean.
Oh,
Before we
yeah.
begin, we publish new...
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're on number 1 here on the list. Greatest British food or dishes, fish and chips. I had almost forgotten about the fish and chips. That definitely belongs at number 1 from an American point of view. This is what Americans think of when we're joking around and we're talking about, oh, what's a British food? A British food. We either say beans on toast or we say fish and chips. Fish and chips is famous as being a British food here in America. So, and it seems to, in reality, be famous and popular in Britain too. It's not a thing here in America. So I'm interested in this.
We've covered breakfast and Sunday dinner, but what about those evenings when you just can't be bothered to cook? What about days out by the seaside or Friday nights in front of the telly? That calls for a trip to the Chippy. Our beloved
The
fish
Chippy,
and
a trip to the Chippy. The Chippy, is that a place that sells fish and chips? This looks good. Americans, we don't eat a lot of fish. That's for sure. This fish almost looks like chicken tenders or something. It must be fried fish. I don't know what that sauce is either, that they're dipping it in.
chip shops have been here since the 1860s, and they're everywhere you look. Battered fish deep fried in oil, hot chips served with gravy, curry sauce, or lashings of salt and vinegar.
Okay.
What could be more comforting? Traditionally, fish and chips were eaten on a Friday, partly due to the Catholic custom of eschewing meat on that day, but there is no bad time to indulge in this iconic combination.
So this is considered more of a dinner food? Lunch dinner, I assume? And it's probably as popular as chicken tenders here in America. I would definitely try this. I've come around on fish. I feel like fish are healthier. Except of course this is fried, so who knows? That throws that out the window.
Do you agree with our picks?
Okay, there we have it. There we have it. That was great. That was by Watch Mojo UK, and I gotta give that a like. I thought that list was quite good. It had a good variety of foods. This is what the Watch Mojo people determined were the 10 greatest British foods and dishes. I feel like at some point or another I have heard all of these, well, except for the trifle. And there was one or two other things I had not actually ever even heard the name of. But most of these I've at least heard of. So I think they did a good job with this list. It was interesting to hear about what these things actually are and how popular they are in Britain, actually. And yeah, my emotions ranged from disgust to delight, and I quite enjoyed it, actually. And, that's one of the cool things about being different cultures. We have different foods, different tastes. There's probably stuff here in America Brits would think is disgusting, and that's fine. It's all in good fun. So I quite enjoyed this, actually. So if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment, perhaps with your thoughts on what the greatest British food or dishes are, or if they made this list, if anything belonged on this list that wasn't there. That'd be interesting to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Britain and British culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.